There we go. We are live on Facebook with a Remembrance Day special honoring our vets. We have one amazing 82-year-old Guy Laruviere. Merci beaucoup. Thanks for being with us.
Okay, please call me Guy.
Guy, we'll call you
Guy,
Guy.
whichever.
Whichever. Easy going. Guy. Yeah, and we're going to have another gentleman after the 4:15 traffic break. And yeah, special people. So thank you for being with us.
I thank you.
Yeah.
Please take note, at 4:15, when we go out to the traffic update, we are going to be shutting off Facebook Live because it's a phone-in conversation. So you got to switch to your radio for less than 15 minutes and then come back to us because we'll be with our second guest.
And we'll repeat it right at the end, in case you forget. Hope everyone enjoys the show. We'll be on in about a few more seconds.
Here we go. Not yet. Thought it was fooled again. Someone forgot to turn off their phone and it was ringing. They didn't know what to do. They opened the door and they threw it out. I was trying to remember who it was. It was very funny.
Then somebody stepped on it.
All right, here we go. Good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family life. So your life isn't going exactly as planned? Well, you're not alone, and we're here to help out. My name is Matt Del Vecchio, specialize in free retirement home search and senior transition support.
And I'm Corey Sirota, clinical social worker and psychotherapist, specializing in grief and loss.
Welcome, Corey. We have a very special show today. We will be honoring those that served in the war on Remembrance Day. It's 100 years ago today since the signing of the armistice to end the First World War, and we're very honored to have a couple of gentlemen that have served for our country. We're going to hear about the meaning of this special day in their eyes, and you really don't want to miss what they have to say.
Absolutely. I'm actually humbled. I'm a bit choked up about the whole concept, and feel very honored just to be sitting next to
Two amazing gentlemen, for sure. We have to say first, this caregiver series that we've done for the last couple of weeks, we're wrapping it up this week, has resonated with a lot of people. The feedback we've gotten just by texting and on even our Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. Thank you very much for your positive comments. Last week with Claire Webster, an Alzheimer's caregiver, was very well received, and we want to thank you for all your positive feedback. That's what we try to do here at Life Unrehearsed, try to provide a little additional tips, advice, and take a positive spin on things.
I'm also equally pleased and humbled by the fact that people are really getting important information, and today is no exception. On the second half of the show, we're going to be wrapping up the caregiver series with our third in a third of three segments and dedicated to caregivers. What better way to end it than with my colleague and friend, one of the most influential voices and advocates for caregivers, Stephanie Erickson. She's going to be joining us in the studio after the 4:30 news.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear from Stephanie, really knowledgeable, and I think it will be just continuation from next week. That's Tons right. of knowledge and advice from her. All right, let's get started. Obviously, Corey, our show is called Life Unrehearsed. Many things happen in our lives. But just imagine having to go to war. It's almost unthinkable. Remembrance Day is such an important day. I always try to encourage, kids and grandkids. They read about it. They hear it in history classes and so on. Talk to a vet, please, if you have the opportunity to do so. I remember talking to my Uncle Frank many, many years ago. Did you know, Corey, the last surviving vet for World War I in Canada died 8 years ago? And there's a little less than 50,000 vets from World War II left. So please encourage conversations, not just on Remembrance Day, during the year. They're going to love to tell you some of their stories as well. And we have a couple very special gentlemen that will be joining us today. We have one in studio, 82-year-old Guy Laruviere. And later on, we're going to be talking to 95-year-old vet Wolf Solkin. But first, we're going to start with Mr. Laruviere. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for being with us, honestly. And for those of you watching on Life Unrehearsed Facebook Live, he and you mentioned off air we can call you Guy or Guy, right?
Doesn't
Okay,
matter.
so we'll refer you on a first name basis, and we appreciate that. 82 years old, looking more like 52. Corey, this guy is a buff gym rat. It's unbelievable.
That's right. I met him at the gym, and I would never believe when he told me his age. I was like, "You've got to be kidding."
Unbelievable. And thank you for being with us again. You were stationed in France in the early 50s during the beginning of the Cold War at what was called the number 2 fighter wing, if we got that correct.
Yeah.
And you enlisted at 17 years old.
That's right.
Why did you do that?
I got out of high school, and then after I walked on St. Catherine Street, where there was the recruiting unit. I walked in, and they were looking for military personnel. They were short. And then they told me what I could choose and what I could possibly get. So I went home, told my dad. I said, "Dad, I have to do something. I've got to do, and it's my country." So I joined.
Didn't you tell me you had to get his signature because you weren't?
Yes, my dad had to sign because I was
That's right.
17 and the age was 18 then.
That's
So I thank him again today.
May I ask you what your best memory is?
The investment was a fellowship amongst service people. That was the best.
And you were stationed in France, you know, with all the guys at one of the wings, and from what I understand, you're an airman, right?
Yes.
And so you were a responsible technician, and so explain a little bit. What does that mean? What did you do?
Okay, so we serviced our fighter aircrafts. So we refueled the aircraft, checked the engines, we did repairs, minor repairs. I made sure the aircraft was airworthy, the weapons were in, and then they could take off. And we had alerts regularly in France. It was they call it Zulu operation. So we were on alert 24 hours a day, and each fighter wing in Europe had their Zulu operation. So, and good stories. Some of our pilots used to go across to the East German, and they were playing cat and mouse with the East German fighters.
That's Guy Laruviere. You're listening to him on Life Unrehearsed. We're talking about Remembrance Day, and he's sharing some of his stories about being serving our country. I have another question.
Sure.
Maybe a more difficult one.
Mhm.
Perhaps you can share with what are some of the more challenging experiences you've had.
One of the biggest experience we had when 2 fighter aircrafts were coming in for landing at Tooling, and they crashed, and they fell on the station where we were, and they fell in the hospital. That was one of the worst.
So the planes fell in the hospital.
And luckily, our hospital in overseas had families too, and there was one area where all the big women had their babies, and they were there, and the planes fell on their wing next to it. So they were all saved. Nobody of them were hurt. And one of the doctors, he held the part of the door up in the fire so that people could evacuate the hospital.
Can't imagine it. And again, overseas in France, doing that gig. You know, when we talk to different vets through our time, I'm always amazed about what they have to say. And I'd love to hear from your perspective about what you want our listeners to know about vets.
They need to be remembered very much because they did everything for us. Sorry.
So completely understandable. Guy Laruviere, war vet who served in France, and obviously speaking from the heart. And just thank you for even being here. Obviously very emotional, and you know, just what you want to hear. You know, you're thanking them. This you mentioned before, and even our next guest. It's not about glorifying.
No, they were in hell.
Right.
You know, hell on earth.
So so that's a very important message for our listeners to know that.
And Canadians are very well remembered, especially in Europe, in Belgium. They were in Belgium because I remember when I was stationed in France, we were invited to a little town of Belgium that was liberated by the Canadians, and they asked us there to parade, and we were in different Belgian families, and the welcome was terrific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Corey, I just can't imagine. You know, there you are, and being welcomed as heroes, as you should be. But of course, looking at and remembering your comrades, and fellow airmen. And I believe You also took a career in Air Canada. Was that mistake
Yes, after I
afterwards?
got out of the armed forces, I joined Air Canada as a technician and did 33 years with Air Canada.
33 years at Air
Yeah.
Canada. Just a little side gig there,
Yeah.
Corey. Well, you know what? Obviously, you could tell just with Guy's reaction what it means for him. And thank you for being in studio. We're going to ask you to stay around if you
Okay.
could, and we're going to get a bit of a traffic update. But when we come back from traffic, we're going to be hearing from 95-year-old war vet. He was in combat during the liberation of Holland, on the ground during the invasion of Germany in the Second World War. But first, we're going to get a traffic update with Lauren Glazer. A hero, really a hero. What we're going to do is we need to cut off Facebook just because we're not going to be able to hear the questions with Wolf.
Right.
We could also, I don't know if you have, we could send an audio of what you're hearing today, even on the second half, and it's something you would download. I don't know if you get email. It's just
Right.
simple, press the button, download, so at least you could hear even the second half.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So thank you for joining us. As Corey explained at the beginning, we got to cut out, and then at 4:30, 4:35, we're going to be back on with Stephanie Erickson. Hope you enjoyed that first quarter. Again, Guy, merci beaucoup. Thumbs up.
Pleasure.
Thank you.